for the conference committee of the House and Senate Judiciary committees. And we are going to first pull up Senate Bill 232. If we could have a, or actually, I think we have some amendments also ready on Senate Bill 500, if our Vice Chair is ready for that. So Senate Bill 500, if we could just have a brief overview from the reviser and the current situation on 500. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Essentially, where you stand with Senate Bill 500, that was a Senate bill. The Senate made some amendments to that bill when they sent it over to the House. The House took out most of those amendments, the amendments that related to the waiver of fees and payment plans. Also, some of the division look back requirements and the court order requirements. And that is where you currently, the House also changed the effective date to January 1st of 2025. So that's kind of currently where you stand with Senate Bill 500.
Thank you. And I think Senator Wilborn has some comments or any questions for the reviser first. Do you have a copy of Senate Bill 500 to pass out?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may proceed. Obviously, the House removed some items that we felt that were pretty important, and I've asked the revisers to draft an offer and a balloon amendment. We'll try to go through that. I do not. And if if the reviser would brief us on the changes, and I'll make a few comments to make this as painless as possible.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, just waiting to make sure everybody was all set. So the first change is on page 3, adding a sentence to make clear that the exclusion of certain violations not being a basis for a violation of this section is to be construed and applied retroactively. As most of you recall from being around here, it helps if the legislature says it intends something to be applied retroactively. If you don't, there are arguments to be made that it could be retroactive, and there are arguments to be made that you didn't intend it to be, and that has to be hashed out. This makes it explicit. So to the extent it can be applied retroactively, that's the purpose of that sentence that's added. On page 5, I just noticed an error. We should have struck the on and after July 1, 2018. That's dead law, essentially. We, makes clear going forward, there's one reinstatement fee of $100. We should have struck it at the beginning, so I was striking it now. But if you don't adopt the amendment and you leave that in the bill, that's fine too. So don't take that as anything other than a little cleanup while I was in here. Page 8 is the reinsertion of 2 provisions that the House removed. The first was the subsection about the court considering certain items. This language is a little bit more permissive. It is deliberately structured so that it says prior to issuing an order that either restricts or suspends under this section, the court shall consider the following things, A, B, C, and D. The language is pretty similar to what was in the bill before. I believe the only addition in subparagraph capital D is it used to just say alcohol or drug treatment, but we added in community service. So rather than reinserting all of the provisions about community service and the hardship waivers and all that, that's not included, but the concept of community service being a way the court could consider instead of or as part of this section is reflected there by adding community service in subparagraph capital B. And then based on the court's testimony, I added a paragraph 2 to this subsection G that would just say that nothing in this subsection should be construed to require the court to make written findings or written payment plan orders. So explicitly clear that no written findings, no written orders are required. These are just considerations. That's the attempt. Subsection H then is restoring the look back period that everyone was talking about of 5 years. So that's H1. You don't consider anything greater than 5 years old. And then broken into a separate paragraph is the part about the division notifying individuals when their 5 years has elapsed. And finally, paragraph 3 just makes that provision explicitly retroactive as well.
So any questions for the reviser? I have a quick question. Does this amendment put back in some of what the Senate position was, and what part of it? Or is it all of that? All of the balloons in front of us were Senate position?
Madam Chair, both the balloons on the final page are both Senate positions. The retroactivity, I am told, may have been a Senate position that was implicit but was not explicit. So that's up to you to decide if that was your position going into this or not. I believe the maker of the amendment believes that was the Senate position. That's why it's in there. So if you look at all that was struck in the bill by the House, all of the language on page 6 that is in bold italic, beginning in, say, line 20, none of that is restored. So that was the hardship, allowing community service or other things to be credited toward fines. So that part is not restored. As well as the top of page 7, that language in line 9 through 15, that's not restored. But you'll see down beginning in line 26 of page 7, the court considerations, those are restored in a modified form that I tried to describe just a moment ago. And then subsection H that was struck about the look back also is restored by this balloon. So 2 of the 3 major pieces that were struck are restored in a modified way.
Thank you. Any other questions for the reviser? All right, not seeing any. Senator Wilborn, any questions or comments for him?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any. We tried to restructure this a little bit more palatable. The hardship clause drew some angst, and so we're willing to give up on that a little bit. I will pay a price with some of my colleagues that were supporter of this and that were hard-nosed about wanting that. But we think this is a nice compromise to bring back, which was possibly a misunderstanding on the House part as to what it really did. As far as the date of enactment, that gives the interested parties a little more time to adjust with their IT systems and their systems and procedures.
Thank you so much. I don't really have a question yet. I think we need just maybe a few minutes to kind of digest and read through. We could take just a minute to discuss, or if it's okay with you, if we could have just a minute. Okay. Or are there any questions at the moment? Maybe after we take a look. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we are all in agreement that this looks, at first glance, it seems like we probably don't have an issue. I think we would like some more time to just look at it before we commit completely. So if we could just put this on hold, let us look at it maybe the next time we come back to it. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. That sounds very good.
Okay.
Thank you. We are really short of time. The Senate has to be on the floor at 2 o'clock, but before we break, wanted to bring up another bill, Senate Bill 232. And if we could get a brief from the revisor, because that was sent back over to the Senate from the House with some changes in it. And if we could just kind of have the current status of 232, or if I'll let the chair, if you want to speak to it first.
Senate Bill 323 has ended up being, I'm sorry, 232 has ended up, the contents of 232 were House Bill 2299 with some amendments that the House made on the floor. And I think what we would like to do is we would like to see how you all feel about it seems like that bill maybe we need to work on a little bit more. And so we would like to actually take the language in House Bill 2653 and put it into Senate Bill 232 would be our desire. You had a hearing on Senate Bill 425, which is the identical language to House Bill 2653. 2653 did cross over the floor of the House and it passed. It has to do with child support for preborn children. And we could have the revisor brief us a little bit more on that or see what questions we have.
Before we do that, is the offer of the House to clear out the contents of 232 and insert the contents of 2653?
Yes, we think at this point the best thing is to just clear out 232 and put in the language of 2653.
Thank you for clearing up the offer. Could we have just a brief statement of a brief overview of what 2653 does? Madam Chair, if you want to, that's fine also.
If the revisor could give the, official sort of legal thoughts, and then we can maybe add some more color to it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm just very quickly making sure that 2653 and 425 are identical, because I wrote a bill brief on Senate Bill 425, but House Bill 2653 went through Fed and State, so we didn't have a House version at our fingertips, and it looks like they are identical. So I will just read from my 425 bill brief. So that the bill provides for child support orders for unborn children from the date of conception. Section 1 amends KSA 20-165. That's the Supreme Court rules establishing guidelines for the amount of child support. The new subsection C in the bill provides that the maximum amount of child support to be ordered for the support of an unborn child shall not exceed the direct medical and pregnancy-related expenses of the mother of the unborn child, and that pregnancy-related expenses shall not include any costs related to an elective abortion. New subsection D provides the amount of child support determined for the support of an unborn child shall be calculated from the date of conception of such unborn child, and that interest shall accrue at the statutory rate that's provided over in Chapter 16. I glossed over the first part of that because I missed it in my reading. The current law requires certain factors to be considered in adopting the rules. A new factor is added, and that is the direct medical and pregnancy-related expenses of the mother if the child is an unborn child. So it would make this one of the factors in the child support guidelines. It would provide how the maximum amount of child support is calculated, and it would provide for interest and the other provisions I mentioned. And then Section 2 amends KSA 23-2205. That's part of the Kansas Parentage Act in the Family Law Code. The parent-child relationship is defined in that section. It does include the mother and child relationship and the father and child relationship. New subsection B would provide that for purposes of this section, child would include an unborn child. So under the Parentage Act, an unborn child would be part of that act by that amendment. Finally, Section 3 amends 23-3001, which is also part of the Family Law Code. That's the requirement to make provisions for the support and education of minor children and actions under our code. The new language in subsection C there provides the definition of unborn child to be used in Article 30 of Chapter 23. And I won't read it, but it's provided there in subsection C.
Thank you. And it is 2:00, so this is a significant change. So we'll take it under advisement and also discuss when we return. So with that, then, if there's nothing else we can get done because it's 2:00, we're going to go ahead and if you have something to say.
Oh, only that we're back on the floor at 5, but I do believe we may have a meeting at 4. So, and maybe you'll still be on the floor. So shall we just be in touch about when our next meeting would
We
be?
will, yes. So please watch the website for notices and emails as well. And with that, then we are adjourned.